You're listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower on WRES 100.7 FM in Asheville. Listen up and get tapped into local important resources, information, and topics. Learn more about the topics of today's show at buncombecounty.org. Okay, it's time to get tapped in.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Tapped In, your favorite show on Buncombe County. And I am your host, Zakiya Bell Rogers, and I am with my wonderful co-host.
And I'm Leonard Jones.
And Leonard and I come to you from the Communications and Public Engagement Department of Buncombe County, better known as CAPE. Today, Leonard, tell us who we have.
All right. Today we would like to introduce our guest is Angelica Tyler from the Communications and Public Engagement Department here at Buncombe County. And so she is going to share some information about our public input program that we have with the county to increase engagement online. Welcome, Angelica.
Hi, guys.
Hello, hello.
Good to be with my team.
Yes. Well, first tell us about yourself. Let the folks know who they're talking to.
All right. I'm Angelica Tyler, like Leonard said. I'm a communications and information specialist with the county, and my specialty is engage.buncombecounty.org, and that's our public engagement site we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so that's the job of what you do. Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm a Georgia Bulldog alumni, go Dogs, and I've lived in the county about 6 years. I'm originally from Georgia. I live out in Candler. I have a Rottweiler that I love.
Oh.
I love dogs.
Did she say she loved dogs? I think she did.
In case you weren't sure, the bigger the better.
Yes.
All right. So we were going to talk about the citizen engagement software. What exactly is that, Angelica?
All right, so engage.buncombecounty.org is another arm of the county's online platform, and this platform is all about increasing engagement. That's why it's called Engage. So there's lots of different ways to engage, which can look like live streaming and viewing recordings of meetings and other events that the county puts on, participating in surveys, giving feedback, offering public comment on meetings, and just getting engaged overall in different projects that get put out. So it's kind of like a technology wing that is a little more engaging and interactive than the website itself.
Okay, so, we talk about, like, getting engaged with the government. And we've come so far. This used to be door to door.
So far.
All the mail. But you have to think about it. A stamp was like, 18 cents back in the time. And so now that we've moved forward, what are some of the features with this platform?
One of my favorite features that I think is really important for Buncombe County is the language access. We're able to take all of our surveys and all of our project pages, and we can translate them into over 100 languages. So
wow.
We know here in Buncombe County we need to see Russian translations, we need to see Spanish translations, and we can even take survey responses in those languages and translate them to get the data that we need. So I think that's really representing all the voices in Buncombe County in a way that not every website can do.
Yeah.
Not everything can do that.
And you said about the languages, but no one, we don't really think about how many different languages, because you can have someone who is from Mexico, but they may not speak Spanish. They may speak another dialect or something else. So that's really nice that there are so many different languages that they can pick from. Leonard?
And then my question is, I know you mentioned that it comes in different language. What's your interest? What should we be interested in using public input as a community? Why should we?
I think it's really great with public input that you can subscribe to what you're really interested in. So it's one thing to remember to check the affordable housing website, right? But if that's something you're really passionate about, you can subscribe to the Affordable Housing Committee. You can get updates when that committee meets. You can watch the live streams on your own time. Let's say you're working during one of the meetings, can't make it. I can go back and watch that on my own time, and get hooked into the projects and issues I care about in a way that's a little harder to do or to remember to do if you're just depending on, okay, did the county put up a social media post to remind me, or did I get a reminder to my inbox because that's my pet project I'm really passionate about.
So I heard you say that some of the meetings are on there. So what happens if I miss the meeting? Do I have to watch live, or is it stored there?
It is stored
going
there.
forward?
It is stored there in perpetuity. So if you want to go back and watch the 8-hour-long Board of Elections Election Day meeting and watch every moment of what they do on camera, you can go back and watch that. It is still there from 2022. So it'll be there as long as we have the Engage contract, which is really great. I think it increases equity of access, which is when we see technology moving us forward, that's one of the big drivers, right? Can I access it even if I work nights, even if I can't drive downtown, even if I'm not even in the country during the meeting, right? I can still go back and see how those decisions were made, see who was in the room, and see how I could get engaged in the future.
Yeah, you just made a point, and I was when we talk about Buncombe County, we're about everything. We're schools, government. We include all these different organizations when we say Buncombe County. I was just thinking, if you were a teacher and you were teaching about what's going on in your community, that would be a great platform to log on to.
Absolutely. See how, especially how decisions get made from our boards and commissions. A big part of the public input site is watching those boards and commissions meetings and understanding how our boards and commissions kind of act like a little assembly line. They are getting the research, the expertise, they're going out for site visits, and then they're feeding that information up to our commissioners. So our commissioners can make really informed decisions based on the people who are really good at this, really invested in this. Then they ultimately make decisions about funding, policy, programs, and ultimately kind of what our county's going to look like, right? So seeing what happens in those boards and commissions is kind of seeing where we might be headed. And there's a lot of power in that and understanding that that's a driver in our county.
You know what? You just made a great point about them being able to see and actually be a part of a board and commissions meeting. And this could also spark interest or volunteers to become members of boards and commissions in Buncombe County, Asheville City, because we do have some boards and commissions that link with them. But this would be a great teaching tool as well, just for the community, to educate them on those processes, and learn how to what's the word I'm looking for, Leonard? You have all the words today. He's been my word guy.
Wordsmith.
Yeah, my wordsmith. He's my dictionary. But it would be able to on-site training, like to see how these meetings are conducted. Because if you're anything like me, you go into your first board meeting and you're waiting to see which platform they use. Robert's rules, or it's another one that people use, and I can't remember the name, but they always do the fingers and the hand. You have to give like
the votes, roll call, things like that.
So it would give enough information to make, and to not make, but to give people choices to see what board and commission they would like to join.
I really encourage people to get curious on engage.buncombecounty.org and look and see what boards are doing things that really light your fire and get you excited to engage in the government. Not everything is for everyone, right? But early childhood education, there is somebody listening right now who has 20 years experience in the classroom, who maybe they just retired, right? But they have so much knowledge and experience. They could contribute to our early childhood education and development board, even if just attending the meetings or seeing how the research is being done, seeing what grants we're putting out there to help with childcare in Buncombe County, right? There is somebody listening right now who has 15 years experience in parks. Our Parks and Rec Advisory Board needs to hear from you, right? And you want to see kind of how are these boards getting their information? How are they getting surveys and data? How are they collecting that to make informed decisions to take to our commissioners?
Yeah.
And so, Angelica, I know it's like we talk about engagement. So, engagement is a two-way street. You don't want to just have information coming down and just kind of sitting and watching. So, how do public input increase Buncombe County residents to truly kind of let their voices be heard? How do they engage with the system that their voices are part of those decision-making process? So, is there any features within public input that allows me to, if I'm watching a meeting and something kind of like that don't make sense, how can I like respond or
Yeah, we have a
public
couple
input?
features. One is you can comment, and that comment lives forever
Okay.
with the video. And the second thing we can do is actually do public comment through the platform itself. And while on that live meeting, I can sign up for public comment. A lot of our boards, you have to be in person to do a public comment. But if they're live streaming, sometimes we can use public comment through that technology. So even if I couldn't drive downtown for the meeting, I can engage that way. But I think a case study, I would say, of where I've seen this work. Recently in the fall, we heard from the public that downtown employees are just struggling to find parking. They're struggling to find affordable parking, and it's changing decisions about whether they work downtown or not. So hearing that need, right, we go and we use engage.buncombecounty.gov. We use our public input portal. We put out a survey asking, hey, if we opened up one of our county-owned decks, would you apply to this program, this discounted rate? We heard all kinds of stories, all kinds of things bubble up. Over 600 people responded. We sent that out specifically to our service industry partners, our hotels, our bars, people supporting tourism in Asheville. And we heard from those people. We were able to send that out in Spanish too. So that information comes back. Some big key takeaways bubble out of the survey, which is, hey, yeah, the deck sounds great, but is it safe at night? Is anybody working? So that goes to the commissioners. We get this overwhelming demand for the parking program. That goes to commissioners. And within 10 weeks, from hearing a legitimate need born out of the community, going to the survey, and then going to the commissioners, can we start this program? We have an application open, and we send an email out to the people who have done the survey. So those people that were engaged and gave us their time and gave us the real raw truth of we're concerned about this, this, and this. Here's what we've done to meet that need. Now, because of that, we've got calls went out this week to give people those a lottery access to those parking passes, right? So in just a few months, we went from idea and concept to results for real folks, for your friends, my family members that need to come downtown to work. And now, because of that demand, we're going back with a new survey about a different parking deck. So you're seeing it, that seems small. It's a local small issue, but that's going to affect somebody's everyday life. That's going to affect the anxiety of coming to work, right? If I know I have a safe and affordable place to park.
Yeah, I mean, and that's such a great thing that you brought up, because we do talk about the safety of our folks and how to make sure those who live in Buncombe County are having access to their jobs and to, being safe. So I think that's truly just from beginning to end how great the engage process is. Yeah.
And it's one example, right? But the technology can also tell us where there's gaps. Where are we missing some voices? And these results don't look like Buncombe County. Where do we have a zip code where we don't have a single response?
Yeah.
We're not hearing from anybody younger than the 65 age group. We are missing the whole Latinx community. So we're able to see that with the technology, and we're able to say, wait a second, this data is not complete yet. Here's where we need to use our public engagement folks to drive public engagement, or here's where we can target some social media to make sure the voices we're hearing really match and are giving an equitable perspective, and not just people who enjoy taking surveys.
So I know, just thinking about engagement as a whole, and we done had Buncombe County has been using public input probably over a year now. So what are some things, if someone go to engage.buncombe.org, what are some of the things they'll see on there currently right now?
So I like to say there's kind of two veins you're going to see. You're going to see boards and commissions, and then you're going to see projects. And some projects don't necessarily have a place they live on our county website right now, like the Woodfin Greenway. It doesn't really have a home yet because it's in its infancy, but it lives on Engage as a place where we can get information and hear some feedback from the community. The opioid settlement fund, we have a survey out right now. We've got over 800 respondents. We want to hear from the community about how opioids are affecting you here in Buncombe County. So those are some examples of projects you're going to see where we really need to hear voices. And then the boards and commissions, we kind of talked about, like Affordable Housing Committee, Board of Elections. You're going to be able to tap into those commissions that are live on Engage and see what they're up to, see their meeting materials or presentations, watch the meetings whenever you feel like it, and really subscribe to any of that. Whatever you're curious about, whatever is a hot button issue for you, you can subscribe and get updates about those boards in particular, or those projects in particular.
So are there any, I know you talked about we can identify some of that quantitative and qualitative data where we can see what we're missing, if it's certain areas of the county that's not showing up in the surveys. Is that something that's just behind the scene, or is that something that the public, if they was looking at Engage Buncombe, can see themselves?
So it's kind of behind the scenes.
Okay.
But a lot of times, like the first iteration of the opioid settlement fund, when that survey went out, as soon as it closed, we published the results.
Okay.
So we show the screenshots of the results, and you can click and you can see what was the most common answer for this question. That's not necessarily, not every result is going to show like demographics, right? But that is something we use to kind of check in with ourselves and make sure we're holding ourselves accountable to getting the best data that really represents our county.
And we do a lot of different surveys. I know recently a survey we were just talking about that you just published was about tobacco, smoking, and the tobacco lists, right? Vapes. And you just published that. So how long will it take for us to start like seeing that information and the data? And then is it immediate? Does it like process every week, or how does that happen?
So certain surveys, depending on if they're a sensitive topic, sometimes the survey will show what everyone else has voted ahead of you. So the employee parking was an example where I could see that the vast majority of people were overwhelmingly in favor of the program, right? And it kind of tracks that so you can see the shading almost. Or if it's a comment question, I can scroll through and see the other comments. Certain surveys, because of the sensitive nature of the questions, right, people can be very vulnerable and share really important ways these issues have affected their lives. Sometimes we hide those comments so people are more willing to tell the whole truth, right? Because it's not like social media. It's not like everyone can scroll through my comments. So you'll see different settings on different surveys depending. The tobacco use on Buncombe County property is another example where like your comments are going to be private because if you're a smoker and you're struggling with that and you're struggling with that health issue, that's not necessarily something all your neighbors need to know about. And we want you to be honest and not feel like your information is just going to be floating around.
I know, just thinking about what you just said about the, I just lost my thought. Just that quick. It's what happens when you, after you turn 42 and you're,
it's Friday.
It's the new year
It's
and
Friday
it's a Friday,
brain.
you know, Friday brain. But no, like, you know, the information that we gather and the ways that we gather it, but there are multiple ways to actually view the engagement platform. You can call in, view it online, and you can text as well.
Yeah, I love that feature. Coming from the school system during COVID, you know, we saw how many of our students didn't have computers at home, didn't have access, so they're doing all their schoolwork on a phone or a tablet. So Engage does exactly that. It is made and built to work on mobile devices and iPads and tablets and things like that. So it's a way for people to engage in a lot of different ways and not just through that traditional sitting down to a desktop situation. So again, more voices, more people involved. You can access it sitting in a parking lot or on a bus.
I think the pandemic really opened our eyes to how many different ways we can actually engage with others, and how and the way we can communicate is not always one way.
Yes.
And so, do you think this was part of the great things that came out of the pandemic?
Absolutely, because we saw with our boards and commissions having to go fully, they had no choice, right? And then we said, hey, wait, this is now accessible to anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have to drive downtown on a Friday at 3:00, find a parking space and participate in this meeting live in person. I could watch it on my lunch break from work. I could watch it later tonight. It's always open. Engage.Buncombe County is always open. We don't have bank holidays. We don't close at 5, right? Like, government can be kind of notorious for that. But having that access all the time, I think COVID opened our eyes, like you were saying, to, hey, why can't we just do this all the time? And there are certain boards and commissions that have rules about what they can do in a hybrid setting and what they can't. So I can't say that every single board and commission will always live stream on public input. But the more that we can, the more that we can offer access. And also, let's be real, you could be on the board yourself and need to rewatch the meeting, right?
Yes.
Like, you could have been in the room and need to remind yourself what was discussed and what decisions were made. So it's just like another way to honor the different ways people engage and need to access information, sometimes a little bit at a time. Maybe I can't sit through a 2-hour meeting, but I could watch this recording in my own way.
Yeah. Well, I know the one of the great things that I saw come out of the Engage platform was that that those who are differently able could now participate.
Yes.
They didn't have to set up transportation, wonder if the building was equipped for them, or have to leave a meeting early because their transportation had to leave. So this has opened many doors to serve many folks in our community.
And get creative about access. The comprehensive plan has done an amazing job. They use Engage like they're drinking water.
Yes.
And the comp plan is doing this amazing tour in our local libraries, and that's such a great way to go out into the community, right? But what they've also done using Engage is they've built a virtual tour of the comprehensive plan, and you can walk through it like it's the real thing. And I think about that, like the access for a person who doesn't have reliable transportation or is maybe scared to be out in public right now, with the flu going around.
Yes.
So just the ways we're getting creative and we're thinking of access from the beginning, not as an afterthought. I think this platform just allows us to think like that, think on our feet like that, because it's built for it.
Yeah. I mean, the platform itself has just really opened so many doors. And
I'm partial.
Yes. Because now I just like, because a lot of folks have church activities and community activities. It would be great if we can get some of those community members to like host Engage night and like
Engage parties.
Yes, Engage parties where they can like come in and they can see and they can ask questions and really get involved with the community, because a lot of folks they'll go to their community center because it's in their area, but they may not go to a actual board of commissions meeting because parking, all those fun things, walking up there, I'm hungry, but if you're right there at your community center and they have food and things of that nature, so there are so many ideas that even the community
can do and take this and run with it.
Yeah.
And even just the idea around reaching a younger population. We realize that as the future progresses, as we see kids in school, they're more technology inclined. They like the flexibility that it allows, and public input just shows how the county is trying to keep up with technology, grow that base, and decrease some of those barriers that people have. Just speaking of.
And that's one thing we're big on is breaking down the barriers, and we're building bridges, not walls, and so that's where we are in this. But I have a question, and I just thought of it. Haha. So when someone has a question and they're watching an already recorded event, can they get an answer to that question? Is there someone who watches that afterwards that gives question and gives answers?
So that would be me.
Oh.
And if I saw a comment that was like directly embedded from a recording, right, I could do a few things. I could present that to like a point person at the board and say, hey, this question came up. Could this be part of a public comment response to be put in ahead of time, right? I could redirect that person to that point person to maybe ask that question at the next public comment. But usually, because I'm not an expert in every board, like I'm going to forward that concern on or connect you to someone who could answer that question for you. But it is a good way to get some like immediate help.
And do you all still get a count afterwards? Like if they watch it later, you see who's going back and viewing it?
Yes. So election day, Board of Elections meeting, I can see who's watching live, and then I can see like the next day we had 40 something people watching it later. Wow. And I was like, it was after 2 a.m. Like, who's watching this?
Yeah.
But that shows that there's just all kinds of folks. There's all kinds of folks that are interested and want to watch this stuff, and that has been really exciting to share to boards who think like, oh, nobody came to the audience today, and it's like, well, actually, 60 participants online that have watched since. So there is some accountability there too. Like people are watching, people are listening to how you make these decisions.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we have to remember there are so many different organizations in Asheville. We have one of the highest numbers of nonprofits, different your organizations like your WISE and all of these places. So there are a lot of board meetings that go on throughout the week everywhere. And so, we're going to miss some of those meetings. And it may appear that no one is there or cares. But with this platform, we're able to make sure that those who want to have the information can have the information. And so it's not a what happened, it's when am I going to have time to sit down and watch what happens. And it may be at 2 o'clock in the morning. Right. While they're trying to squeeze everything else into their lives. So, and that's what makes this platform so amazing. So we have to get ready to wrap up. All right. So I want you to give your best plug to our community. Why do you need to log in?
You need to log in to engage.buncombecounty.org so that your voice is reflected in how our county is shaped. We say that all the time with elections, right? Like, make your voice heard. But this is making your voice heard on that granular, project-based level that actually changes things. That parking program sounds like a little thing, but for somebody that is going to change their daily life, and that's one example. So I just think small. Our local government is working every single day on programs and services that can affect your life and can affect what our county looks like. Go get curious. Look at the openings, subscribe to something that looks interesting to you, and find one way. Kind of challenge you, find one way to get engaged with something you weren't engaged with before.
All right, Leonard.
And I'll just like to tell the community out there is that we just want you to engage with government. This is the government that's here to serve you. And so engage.buncombecounty.org is the site that you go to, and you always can go to buncombecounty.org to find out all the information about the county. But this platform is truly a way that allow that flexibility for us to be creative and create access for all our community to engage with Buncombe County. And so I just strongly encourage people to go out to engage.buncombecounty.org and find out more about the initiatives that's going on here in Buncombe County.
All right. I have to wrap this up, and I'm going to wrap it up in Zakiya Bell Rogers fashion. So, every big idea started with a small voice that was allowed to come out. We're asking all of you all to lift every voice and engage. You can't say you didn't know if you don't try. You can't say you didn't know if you don't research. You can't say you didn't know if you don't engage. Buncombe County is truly embarking on being one Buncombe. We're truly being engaging with our community because we want our community to have the things that they need and they desire and they want. And that is because we want to continue to grow as a community. We want to continue to grow our children here and have jobs here and live in this beautiful community. So, when in doubt, check us out. Go on to engage.buncombecounty.gov and give us a look. And believe you and I, we'll look back because we'll get the data. So love to all of you all. Until next time, you've been tapped in.
Thank you for listening to Tapped In, Buncombe County's half hour to empower, here on WRES 100.7 FM in Nashville. Learn more about today's topics at buncombecounty.org. Otherwise, stay tuned for more great episodes coming up.